I was still in the concept what a lot of people have, that boundaries are about me pushing you away. A boundary is not about you. A boundary, and I really don't like the word boundary. I use the word guidelines because of this, because people have bashed the word. Because people believe, and I believed, that boundaries were about me setting something to you. I'm trying to control you to get you to behave in a particular way. So I'm setting this boundary against you. What a boundary is me looking after myself and taking care of my own needs. So for me today, when I have to set a guideline for my life, whether it's an internal one or an external one, when I have to set that guideline for myself, I need to know what need I'm trying to get met to hold it.
Welcome. I'm Andy Carlson, and you're listening to the Time with Tim podcast. Each episode, we explore the impact of complex trauma through the personal journeys of our guests. Along the way, we'll connect with experts and individuals who share their unique perspectives, insights, and practical tools to help you on your healing journey. Welcome back to Time with Tim. I'm Andy Carlson, and today I'm joined by Morag, whose journey is as powerful as it is inspiring. She grew up in Australia, and today we'll cover her childhood story, struggles with addiction, and her healing journey through 12 steps in Tim Fletcher's Lyft program. Morag is bringing this work to a new audience. Later this year, she is launching a new React group in Brisbane as part of a pilot program. She brings passion, storytelling, infectious joy, and deep hope for others who may see parts of themselves in their journey. Morag, welcome. It's so good to have you here today.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for asking me to come and do this. It's a real honor to be part of the Tim Fletcher organization and to share my story with people. Hopefully it's going to help somebody along the way.
Thought that we would start with maybe just a couple of lighthearted questions just to get the conversation flowing. And so knowing you, I made these particular for you. And so the first thing I want to ask is, you always say, find something that makes your heart sing. And I would love to know what's been making your heart sing lately.
Lately, what's been making my heart sing is lots more dancing. So dancing is something I really love to do, always did. It was probably something I had as a child that was one of my escapes. I just put on music and I would transform into a beautiful ballet dancer or rock star or something. It was probably a fantasy world, but the dancing itself gave me a sense of freedom that, probably now what I understand is the somatic connection to releasing the trauma that was going on for me as a child. But now, today it's just about freedom. Like, I go to all sorts of different stuff when it comes to dancing. And a very good friend of mine said to another friend, if you want to see Morag free, take her out dancing. Because I just lose, become so light and it makes my heart sing.
It's wonderful. Is there any particular type of music or genre that you really enjoy?
I'm a bit of an 80s, 90s kid. So,
okay. Yeah.
The misspent youth was the late 80s, early 90s. So I'm very much into, think about MC Hammer, Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, all them, middle of the shuffle, and that's Morag on the dance floor.
I love that. Yeah. I feel too, when I think about 80s, to me, there is something like really kind of like loose and free of like people kind of just dancing to 80s music.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so much fun. And people are more relaxed and so it's kind of reliving my childhood again. But I do have to remember now that I'm not 25 and that 2 or 3 days later, I'm probably going to be a little bit in pain.
Really? Really? So you feel it afterwards?
Yeah, if I dance the way I did when I was 20, this body's a little older these days.
Yeah. It's a little different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't stop me though.
Yeah. Well, so, since we're a community that's focused on healing from complex trauma, we're not really afraid to dive off the deep end of vulnerability. One of the things that I like to do when I go one-on-one with someone is to just ask, what's a recent vulnerability you've been navigating today or in the past few days? And since I'm springing this on you, I can go first And I'll actually like do this as a bounce off of what you said. So like I grew up with a lot of shame around dancing. Um, and people have that saying like dance like nobody's watching. Well, I can't dance or sing alone in my room without kind of still this like overriding shame. But that's been something that over the last 2 years I've noticed I've been like kind of increasing. Maybe like 4 months ago, I'd be like dancing with at night with the lights off in my room, so like I can't see myself and I'm still imagining nobody can see me. And I just moved into a new space recently, and it was like the middle of the day. I had the window open. There's like an apartment across the way, so theoretically people could have seen in. And so I felt kind of like the same amount of kind of the shame as I did a month or so ago. But like I could tell that like my window of tolerance and my ability to like not worry what other people are thinking, but and then also just to be in that, like you said, this somatic, the embodiment is changing. And that's something like I want dancing to be a part of my life. And so it's something that I'm excited to be moving in a way where I just like I kind of don't care as much what people think. And I'm also like this like silly head which is caring a lot. I'm like kind of dancing with it and not worrying about what it thinks as well. Um, yeah. And so I think that's mine. And so I was wondering about you. Is there something that you've been navigating recently?
Yeah, there's always something when it comes to Morag. There's always something.
Mm,
Um, I guess, I know we're going to talk a little bit later on. You talked about the in the intro about me studying, a pilot course here of the React program.
mm,
Um, that's probably one moment at the moment. I'm really putting myself out there, um, doing it under my business name, kind of connecting with the Tim Fletcher organization, having that association with him, as I have for the last, 4 years that I've been doing the work for him. But really, like, launching it here, it's a bigger pool, it's a bigger network, it's more competition, there's all that. And for a moment, when Tim was actually in Australia and he and I started talking about this, I was like, oh, I don't think I've got it. I don't know if I can do this all on
mm,
my own. It's one thing to do it where it's already pre-prepared for, with you guys in the organization, but me doing it all by myself and, being the face of React in Australia,
mm,
being the face.
mhm,
So I'm out there, like it's all open for Morag. So it's a little vulnerable doing that. Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? Is it going to be successful? What does success look like in my world? That sort of stuff. I did my first intro workshop the other day on it. I've got a couple this week, and
mm,
I had 5 people turn up, and out of the 5, everyone walked away going, "Oh my gosh, we all need this. My whole family needs
mm,
this." So
mhm,
the vulnerability left when I realized, uh, even if I've reached one person by doing
mm,
this,
mm,
it's why I'm doing this. So
yeah,
my vulnerability of putting Morag out there again, putting myself out there again, it kind of left when I know my purpose is actually to be doing that for other
mm,
people and not just for
yeah.
myself.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like as you're talking about it, there's that stage of kind of like the thinking ahead, that what about and doubt, and then kind of when your feet are really hitting the road, when there's like some reality and like seeing the human
Yeah.
reaction to it, like the real reaction, then all of a sudden, kind of just changing something inside of
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does. It changes something inside. One of the people who come was just a friend, and I said, "Oh, just come be a bum on the seat. Like
Hmm.
I need to fill the room a little bit. So come be a bum on the seat." And several people have registered, and she was the one that was affected the most. So
Mm.
yeah, no.
Mm.
So I kind of knew she might be, but
Uh-huh. Yeah.
yeah, it was like, yeah, she, the emotions come up. She could see it.
Mm.
Yeah. So this work is just, the whole program, the React program, the online Lyft program, the work that Tim puts together, it's life-changing for people. I haven't met one person who does this work that doesn't have a significant change in their life as they go through the work, as they do it.
That's like really beautiful that you're able to offer it to your community and not just kind of the physical space of your community, but also like people and people who are in your network and in your community already. I'm excited to chat with you more about that, and I'd love to hear, in this. I know that your story is a very transformational journey, and so I was wondering if we could go back and if we could walk through your story together. And so maybe if you'd be willing to start us off by telling us maybe about your family, kind of like your parents and your family background.
Yep, absolutely. So both my parents are Scottish, and mum and dad came to Australia on the 10-pound boats over 60 years ago now, and when they arrived here, they had my eldest brother and sister. So my I have four siblings, uh, two brothers, two sisters. Um, so mum and dad arrived on the boat. They landed in Australia, had no one here, didn't know anyone, whole new country, whole new bunch of trauma, what I know today. Saw everything in their life, real struggle. The work that dad could get here was very different to what he was doing in Scotland. Like in Scotland, he wasn't doing very manager jobs or, very little labour job, where here he became a bricklayer. And so it was like completely different work. And my dad did drink. Mum wasn't aware. Dad has, had a substance abuse, and not my place to label him an alcoholic. So he did have substance abuse throughout my childhood and growing up. So there was another aspect of, struggle for mum on that. Like now she was on her own in a country without any support, with a husband that wasn't present through his drinking, and raising the two babies. They landed in Perth, moved to Sydney, and then eventually moved up to Brisbane. And when they moved here, they had my older brother, and so there was about 5 years gap between my older sister and my older brother, then 2 years between my brother and myself, and then 2 years between myself and my younger sister. So we kind of were like two families, like they're old, even though
Mm,
they're only like 7 years difference, there was a difference in our age group. And so
hmm.
like the three youngest ones were one part of pod of the family, and the two oldest were the other pod. Mum worked a lot. Dad drank a lot. There was a lot of unavailability in the family. In saying this, I don't want anyone to think, oh, blame or shame my parents. I, completely understand where they come from today, and, love them dearly, have no anger, resentments, nothing towards, but don't blame them for anything that occurred in my life. Because of what it's given me today, the life it's given me today, and I understand trauma. Like
Mm-hmm.
hopefully I
Yeah.
understand trauma of what I do. So I understand, the impact of all that would have had on my mum and then on my dad as well. So, so grew up in that kind of dysfunctional, unavailable household. School never really fitted in. I was, what they always call the black sheep of the family. I was a rebellious. Yeah. In hindsight, everything makes more sense. In
Mm,
hindsight, I understand why I was like that. I understand the trauma that was connected to my childhood and why I was rebellious, why I couldn't concentrate in school, why I always got in trouble. I can see all that in hindsight. But in the
yeah.
time, I was just always in trouble. I had more more days at the detention office than I did at the school class.
Mm, mm-hmm.
So I didn't do well in school because of that. Like, I've labelled it myself as anxiety dyslexia. So whenever I get really anxious, I
Mm,
can't focus, can't read. If I was a kid today, I'd have all the letters behind my name. I'd have the ADHD, I'd have all of it.
yeah.
Thank God I'm not a kid today. For me, anyway, for me. And so growing up, teenage years, there was in my childhood there was sexual abuse from external parts of external people in my life, and that had a massive impact and shaped my life in lots of ways. Being in a home where I didn't feel like I belonged and didn't feel like I connected. And this is all my perception of
Yeah.
what happened, whether that was the reality, it was my perception as the child growing up. The sexual abuse shaped who I was, who I became. It shaped how I sought validation. It gave me a misunderstanding of what love was. And then that into my teenage years is what I ended up seeking. In the Tim Fletcher program, we talk about the 12 needs. I'm a huge fan of the 12 needs. It's something that I talk about all the time. I know you and I are going to talk about it at some stage. And what I recognize today is the needs that didn't get met for me when made my personality and made my energy be somebody who sought a lot outside of myself to get validation, to get attention, to get love. And unfortunately, the one person who gave that to me, apparently, who I saw that from, actually harmed me and hurt me. So then that gave me a misunderstanding, a confused outlook on harm and hurt and abuse and sex was what I needed to do and needed to have to be loved,
Yeah.
which is not true.
Did I ask you with that? Gabor Mate, he always goes back with people and he asks, was there anyone, were you able to talk to anybody about that at the time?
No, no. The one person I did talk to about it was a school friend,
Mm,
and 8-year-old school friends, think something's funny that's not funny. She ended up
mm,
telling somebody else. So then it was then spread around the school that,
mm,
Morag has sex with everybody.
mm.
And that was at the age of 8 or 9. So it's
At
pretty
8 or 9,
harsh,
yeah.
when I think back
Yeah.
now. So there was a very strong label of me being young, and
Hmm.
and I couldn't talk to anybody at home about it. I may have been able to, I just didn't. I didn't. Yeah. Again, hindsight, I see that I didn't feel safe to talk about it to anybody else. So, and it wasn't till I was in my late teens I actually started talking about it with people.
You talked a little bit about kind of like, you know, this experience teaching you kind of your own values about like love and getting attention. Like, when you were that age, when you're, like this 8-year-old, this little child, like how did you like make sense of that experience at the time?
Didn't.
Mm,
I didn't understand what happened. I didn't understand why it happened. Um, I probably disassociated in the moment. Um, I couldn't comprehend. I couldn't comprehend what had happened. Like there was just no, you know, as a child, you go out and you ride your bike, you fall off your bike, and you go, "Oh, I've hurt myself." So, well, I went down the hill too fast, and I fell off the bike and I hurt myself. So that made sense. That sort of stuff made sense. For a adult male to harm a little child, um, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense because I didn't understand what happened, what was actually
mm,
happening to me, like the actual act, the sexual act itself. Couldn't comprehend that. Like I might have been 7. I can't remember. 5, 6,
yeah.
7, something in that age. I think about 7.
Hmm.
Um, uh, I couldn't comprehend the actual physical thing that had happened to me. But then I couldn't comprehend the after effects. So, uh, you know, the feeling of his manipulation afterwards, his grooming afterwards, the paying me
Mm,
off, gave me money, gave me lollies.
mm,
Hence his, a sugar addiction started at a very young age
mm,
because of,
hmm.
connected to this trauma. Um, there was all that was connected to it. The not being able to tell or be open with anybody, not having someone that I felt safe enough to say, this man just hurt me. kind of made me see that the world was really unsafe. But again, hindsight, I didn't know any of that. My behavior just changed dramatically
Mm,
as that child. What I understand today is sometimes, people's behavior changes in a way where they are sexually abused, that they go completely within, whether it's because of my personality type and I'm a pretty big extrovert, or because it finally felt like somebody, you know, as wrong as the act was, I finally felt loved. And again, my
mm,
perception, I finally
mhm,
felt somebody cared for me, even though the act itself was horrible. So then that created a space within me that I continually just looked outward to try and get that validation, to try and get that filled. So I was always looking for someone to rescue me. I was always looking for someone to save me. I was always looking for, you know, um, the knight in shining armor to come and, you know, be my soul, save my soul. What I was getting rescued from, I don't know. Like as a child, cognitively, I don't
yeah,
understand. But that was just the feeling inside that I just always needed to be saved.
mm, mhm. So there's something, yeah, a lot of like confusion and kind of difficulty processing and understanding, and then this kind of this need for external, like, what would you say? So looking for this rescuing, this kind of external validation. Are there other things that you believed about your worth as a child?
Yeah, I had a lot of feeling unworthy. I had a lot of, I was a, not carrot top, it's like a little red-headed freckle face, bright green
Mm,
eyes. I see photos of me now as a child. I think, oh my God, you're gorgeous. Like she was
mm,
such a gorgeous
mm,
little girl.
mhm,
And, but at the time, I wasn't, I
mhm,
was, a skinny little bean that would just run around all the time, high energy. Like I always have really high energy, red hair, freckles, blotchy freckles, IT, like, so I never thought I was an attractive girl. I never thought I was an attractive child. I was an
mm,
ugly little kid. Kids would tease me at school. My name itself, like Morag, wasn't a name you heard, at
mm,
school in 50 years ago. It just wasn't a name common in Australia anyway. So
mhm,
lots of, like, everything about my identity seemed wrong when I was growing up. Everything about me just seemed like I wasn't, um, I didn't fit. I didn't fit in the world. I didn't fit with the cool kids. I didn't fit with the bad kids. I wanted to be cool, but being cool meant I had to be bad, but I was scared if I got caught, I'd get punished, but I'd try and be bad. And, that
mm,
wouldn't work. I wasn't smart enough to be with the smart kids. The athletic kids I was a little bit with. I was a little bit athletic growing up, burn up some of that energy, but so my worth and my value of myself was close to zero growing up. Like I didn't have any. So that one thing that made me feel worthwhile became an existence for me. It became a drive for me to keep proving that this was part of who I was. And I guess that then led into, the pain of that just led into the next stages of my life, which was then addictions and
mm. Yeah, I was gonna ask you like how you started coping with that pain. But before I do that, I actually want to just kind of check in as, as you're talking about this, kind of going back and thinking about this, like what, with all the work that you've done on yourself so far. I love that you're saying that you can look back and you see just the beauty of this little girl. What comes alive for you today as you share this experience and you bring this experience up again?
how much I've healed, Andy.
Mm,
Like, when I think of that little girl, it's almost like a separation.
mhm, mhm,
I remember the first time I did my story for Tim and I watched it after he aired it. I didn't want to see it till it was aired. And I
mhm,
remember watching it and I cried. I cried for
mm,
that little girl. I
yeah,
absolutely cried for her because it was like, I'm not that person anymore.
mm,
I'm not that brokenness anymore.
mm,
Still a few wounds that have band-aids on them, but I'm not broken the way I was broken as that child. And um, absolutely the joy of, um, knowing, like, going through everything I went through, and knowing today that that little girl today is now loved. Like, she is
Mm-hmm.
nurtured, she is loved, and
Mm.
by me, and
Mm-hmm.
the shift and changes in who I am. It's almost like it's a world away. It's a lifetime
Yeah.
away. It's another universe of person, like sliding door stuff.
Mm.
It's not who
Mm-hmm.
Morag is today. Like, it's not who I am
Yeah.
today. Yeah.
I love that you're like able to take care of yourself so deeply and in such a way. Just to like I can see as you're speaking, like kind of like just the fullness of your. It sounds weird for me saying, but the fullness of your love for yourself, like not in
Yeah.
a, but it's like there's this beautiful kind of fullness in your expression as you talk about that and talk about your healing. So I want to ask then, so yeah, how did you start coping with the pain in your teenage years? You talked a little bit about addiction, but like were there other like body image or relationship issues that played into this as well?
Yeah. You know, I pretty much have had every addiction you possibly could consider, except gambling. I don't gamble. I
Mm,
always blame it on my Scottish heritage that I'm too tight to lose any money, but that's not true. I know lots of Scots who gamble. Um, um, uh, I think, looking back and looking at all my stuff, my very, very first addiction was approval seeking and attention seeking, constantly wanting people to pay me attention, which then led into, so I mentioned sugar addiction. That was there very early. I could reach the cookie jar. I couldn't reach the bottle of alcohol, growing up. So it was my second. My approval seeking was my first. My sugar addiction was my second. Um, Teenage years, I got into smoking cigarettes, playing around with drugs, mostly soft drugs, like smoked a lot of pot, played with some drugs, but a lot of drugs did nothing for me. So, a lot of my stuff was connected to the attention seeking. So unless I got if I, got bombed out and sat and did nothing and numbed out, then it didn't feed the attention drive in me. So a lot of my drinking really took over. Probably started drinking in my teenage years, blue light disco, went out, got drunk with
mm-hmm,
girlfriends, drank some really cheap, nasty champagne as you buy in Australia. If anyone who listens to this from Australia, passion pop, and it's like, you just don't buy it. It's $2 a bottle, really expensive champagne. um, so, drank that at a school dance, and it changed who I was. I went from the ugly red-headed girl to being the prettiest girl in the school, and I could dance, I could talk to the boys, and I could flirt, and I could do all those things, and I got attention. So it fed both of those things, and
mm-hmm,
from that, I didn't start drinking really until I was, say, 15. So it sounds like really old, but it's still very young. And I started working, so I could buy my own alcohol. I could do my own things. So and then I, was just chasing trouble. Like, wherever I went, um, the addictions, the trouble, the chaos was there, the drama was there. My family tried to save me and rescue me at times. I remember my brother-in-law at the time came and picked me up from an apartment that just a young girl shouldn't have been living in. And I was like, ran away from home and stayed in this place that was,
mm-hmm,
15 times worse than where I was living at home. And, um, and he come and took me home, and my older sister did the same. She took me out of workplaces and got me jobs in different places to try and help me get away from the people who they thought were the influence,
mm-hmm,
where, really the influence was me. I was always the problem. So I got into really drinking. I never, and people get people misunderstand what alcoholism is, and I think it's the 24-hour day soak, the person who drinks all the time. That wasn't me. I was still a binge drinker. I was 25 when I got sober through 12-step programs. Um, so I only drank for 12 years, but it was enough. It was enough emotionally. I couldn't go on anymore. I was done. I was spent. It was kind of like, if I keep doing this, I know I'm going to die. So there was a real intervention for me with what I now understand is my understanding of what God is in my life, and then the next path, the next chapter of my life started.
Could I just go back for a moment and ask kind of like, you're looking for all of these things to kind of like soothe or mediate this pain that you're experiencing. Are you able to kind of like describe what that pain would have felt like? Like if there's any like the somatic experience of it or even the mental experience of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I guess, one of the things that I recognize when you're not in it, you can see how it did affect. So for me, I can see how it was affecting me now, which I didn't know what was going on for me then. When I learned about insecurity and fear and anxiety, I realized I was like that my whole life. I used to sit on a train going to the same workplace for at least 2 years, every single day, same train, same station, nothing changed. And I would count the stations every single day because I was scared if I missed the station, I'd get in trouble. So I was always in that state of high anxiety, the state of high, fear of what's going to happen. Always searching and looking outside of, what's next, what's next, what's next. Never ever being able to rest in my body, like never being able to sit still or be, conscious enough to be, present with anybody else. Uh, Absolutely, totally irresponsible, never took care of anything, bills, all that, never did anything.
Mm.
I worked the whole time that, I was in
Hmm.
my addiction, in and out of jobs. No drive, no career drive, no nothing. It was just like I just needed to always get by. That was my drive. A feeling of absolute deep loneliness and emptiness is what I used to feel constantly. Like I used to feel, even in a crowded room, I would feel completely alone. I'd have friends and I'd go out with friends, but even in that space, the emptiness, the dirtiness inside of me, if people knew who I was, people knew what I'd done, because by this time I'd taken full responsibility, like I'd taken the blame for being harmed. I'd taken the blame for everything that had gone on. It was all my fault. If I would have been a better person, none of this would have happened. So that
Mm.
shame really started perpetuating in my life. Total shame, completely unworthy, unlovable, unattractive, not enough. And you can put the dots alongside of it. And that was me. I was never enough for anything or anyone. And that's how I lived, but I wasn't conscious or awake to any of that. It was just get up in the morning. This is how you feel. Put your clothes on. Get doing what you're doing. Get to the end of the day. Have a drink, and you'll be okay.
A lot of like deeply subconscious like danger and loneliness and like all sorts of different types of shame. It's interesting that you talk about the you were to blame. I don't know how to formulate a question around that. I'm wondering, can you kind of share why or how it came that you feel that you were the one responsible?
Yeah. Um, Straight after the incident happened, and once again, I'm just gonna preference is that I don't have any resentment against my mum. Like,
Mm.
she did.
Hmm.
People used to say to me all the time when I was in my pain, your mum did the best she could with what she had. And I would go, wasn't good enough. She didn't do a good job. She failed me. She didn't protect me. I was so angry. I was so angry at her. But today I understand she did. She did the best that she could with what she had. So
Hmm.
her reaction to me when it happened was one of frustration and anger. So, um, when straight after the incident happened, what stopped the incident was my mum was calling me. So he was my next door neighbour and a grown man who lived next door, and my mum was calling me. So that's what stopped him harming me at the moment. So then by the time I gathered myself and stopped crying and went down to mum, her face, which I know today was fear, but
Mm.
as a child was anger. So my
Yeah.
mum's face told me I was in trouble for what just happened. Now, she didn't mean that. She didn't mean to react that way. Came from a place of fear because I think she knew that this man wasn't somebody her daughter should ever be alone with. And through circumstances, I did end up being alone with him. So her reaction to me told me it was my fault. It told that little girl she did something wrong because now mum is upset with her. So, in all the work that I do with people, one of the trainings I do with people is I teach them to be grey rocked. If their child comes to them with any sort of harm or hurt, try
Mm-hmm.
desperately not to show anything other than love, because the child will interpret that as anger and fault. So,
Yeah.
um, so because of that reaction, and again, didn't know it at the time, but that built on and built on and built on, then, me becoming the rebel and becoming the child who was always in trouble, becoming the person who, was always the one who was to blame, and I was made responsible for my little sister and my brother, and when things went wrong. So there was a lot of responsibility put on me young because I was capable. I was capable child. I was the one who could do things. And that's, the family home joke is that, well, you were always the one who did things, Morag. You had to look after them. You're the one we trusted. And,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't interpret it as trust, though, as a child.
Yeah. Yeah. Always a sense of responsibility. I think too, it's important, like how well, first, I can totally understand seeing a parent's face racked with fear. That would just feel terrible for a little child to see and then take that on. I see a lot of times in healing, when we first start our healing, especially when we come up from a very shame and blame based, the first step is we often do then blame our parents. And so sometimes we get to forgiveness like too quickly, and that may like slow the journey down. But there is this in between place of kind of recognizing, their own humanity and their own accountability, but like beyond the blame and shame. And I was wondering if we could take a quick detour and ask about like your journey for maybe moving from a more shame based and then externalizing the blame to kind of moving into this place of accountability and what it sounds like is forgiveness as well, or understanding and the humanity.
That took a lot of inventory process. So through 12-step work, getting sober, doing a lot of, in the 12-step, there's a 4-step that's, you deal with all your resentments. So it started with that, dealing with resentments. So in the 12-step world, I've done AA steps, Al-Anon steps, CODA steps, SLA steps, Overeaters Anonymous steps. I like
Mm-hmm.
steps. I like doing steps.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done all the programs that for each addiction that I had, and so it began with that, like seeing in their language they talk about my part, but it's really like I saw my responsibility in some of the stuff,
Mm-hmm.
where the hurt and shame came from in that. I take responsibility for what was, what my decisions was. Even at a young age, there were decisions made. Not responsible for being sexually abused. Please, no one think that's what I'm saying. I was a child. It was not my responsibility or my fault in any way. Um, but those inventory processes, doing it again and again and again and again, healing, one of the biggest gifts I had, especially with my mum, was I eventually took her out of the role of being my mum to do my healing. So when I see and say my mum, automatically I have an expectation of what this woman's supposed to be, how she's supposed to behave, what she's supposed to do, who she is, and what she didn't do as that role. When I put her in the role of Elizabeth, I see
Mm.
this woman who came to a country with 2 babies, with a husband that wasn't very available because of his own drinking, and she then had 3 more and raised us in the 70s. There wasn't the support, there wasn't the help, there wasn't the stuff that's out there. She would have been crippled with fear. would have been crippled with anxiety and how am I going to live and survive and look after these kids. So when I see her as that woman, I see she's an incredible, strong woman. So I had
Yeah.
to take her out of the role of being my mum, because in my
Yeah.
mum, she failed, as
Yeah.
that role, not as that person. So that was one of my biggest aha moments with her. That was one of my biggest healing processes. And then as years went on and all the work that I did up to leading into doing the Tim Fletcher program, um, then really, like, I'd done a lot of work on shame. I'd done a lot of work on, releasing and remote dependencies, and could see a lot of things. I saw my dependency on my mum was extreme, even though I felt extremely independent of her. Like, I don't need you. I'm more than capable of doing everything myself in my own life. I don't need you. Um, but the truth was, every relationship I ever had was based on her not giving me my worth, or
Mm.
me not having that from her. And then I try to seek that from everyone. So I was completely dependent on my mum emotionally.
Yeah.
Um, and when I saw that, that shifted a huge amount of stuff again. And then when I did the Fletcher program, when I did the Lyft program, it dived deeper into the levels of shame that are attached. Because there's levels. There's not just, mum didn't love me, my perception, mum didn't love me, that's the shame. There were levels and levels and levels of shame that I had to uncover, heal, see the truth. Like, just even separating her from mum to, Elizabeth, separating that into a place where I could get to see her trauma completely. Like, I could see her childhood. I could see my grandmother. I could see my grandfather, how they treated her, how she fitted in her family, the generational trauma that happens within us. Lots of techniques and healing in between, family constellation work, uh, heaps of somatic work to shake her out of my body, lots of inventory writing. I do a lot of journaling, a lot of prayer, the process I use is two-way prayer, which is me writing, God answering sort of stuff, a lot of meditation. So all those things have got me to where I am today, where no matter what she does, even it can still pinch. It can like the pinches still can happen, but I
Mm-hmm.
have such a deep love for this woman, Elizabeth, that who did her absolute best to raise this rebellious, you know, one of the reasons I don't have children, because I used to say to my mum, if I had a daughter half as bad as me, I'm sure I'd kill her. So, it's I'm one of the reasons I don't have children, is because I was
Mm.
just like, no
Mm-hmm.
way. Yeah. So, and then you shift that. I can't say I've shifted that to gratitude for everything she has, but I
Mm-hmm.
certainly have shifted it to compassion.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm feel that you shared that in such a way you can see the layers, the length, the complexity, the depth of it. But even as you began speaking, there's like I felt the aha in there of that separating that role out of the failure that of a mom, but then kind of this human, this person, Elizabeth, and then also being able to see what she went through as well. I can see how powerful that would be. Um, so I know we've kind of jumped into the healing journey here, but I just want to go back to give you an opportunity if there's anything else you wanted to share about your teen years, your 20s, because you'd kind of before I detoured you, I think you were starting talking about ending drinking and then kind of moving into the 12 steps. And so I just want to go back there quick to see if there's anything that you want to touch on, or if we want to talk a little bit more about the 12 steps at this point.
For me, Andy, a big part of my addiction and my behavior was stemmed, like I said, the sexual abuse stemmed my path. It laid out my course. In that, a lot of people think when people are highly sexual or very active sexually, you know, they're sluts, they're tarts, they're, you know, beep, beep. We might have to beat that one there. But, they think it's a choice. And then
Mm.
at the end of the day, it is a choice. But the choice for me wasn't about, I wanted to be so sexual. I was seeking that love and seeking that attention. And that good old song, Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places, was exactly
Mhm.
that. So in that, every time something happened within me, more shame got created. Every time I acted out, more shame got created. Every time I harmed myself by doing something I didn't want to do, but didn't know how to say no. And that is a direct result from the abuse. I didn't know how to say no to this man that harmed me. So that then carried on in my life. So one of my greatest things today is I know how to say no to anything that's going to harm me. And that's the transformation of doing this work. Um, when there were things that happened in my life that led me to saying, I'm done. I've got to do something that's different here. And one of them was I did fall pregnant and I made the choice to have a termination. Uh, and that wasn't an easy decision to make. I wasn't a 16-year-old girl who just messed up. I was 25. But that gift led me to getting sober. And I know today that it was my universe, my God's power in my life saying, I'm going to stop you one way or the other. You're going to stop drinking. And that led to then the next journey of getting sober,
Mm.
finding 12-step program through a rehab. I didn't want to go to a 12-step program. That was for real drunks. I wasn't a real drunk. I always joke about it in meetings when I share and I say, well, Alison on Melrose Place went to a rehab and she got sober in 3 episodes. So I thought that's what I needed to do. And I did.
Mhm.
I went off to a rehab and they introduced me to AA. AA introduced me to the 12 steps and to a beautiful woman called Carol who became my sponsor and best friend for over 27 years.
Mm.
She died just over 3 years ago now of cancer. And that woman became such an impact on my life and
Mm.
nurtured me in a way nobody ever had and loved me in a way no one ever had and taught me how to do those things. Did the process of the 12 steps, go to meetings. I'm still very active in AA today. I'm just shy of 30 years sober now, which is just mind blowing that I'm
Wow.
that old. Oh, geez, I'm that old now. I'm still very active in 12-step world. As I went into that, it was a process. It was all uncovering, discovering this part of me. Then I'd go to the next part and go, well, this isn't enough. I'm not a 12-step member that sober is enough. I want to be free. And to be free, I needed to keep finding that deeper relationship with what I
Mm.
call God. And that meant more work. That meant finding somebody like Tim Fletcher along the path and going, now it makes sense. So, and I've said before, and I've, said to Tim that the 12 steps taught me how to live a life because I didn't even know. I was 25 and like the age of 3, like age of 5 emotionally. Um, and when I came across Tim's work and did his program a couple of times, I, his work taught me why I needed the 12 steps in the first place. His work taught me about the shame. His work taught me about the core hurts. His work taught me about how it's all connected and how I'm still holding it in my nervous system. And then that just rocketed my healing journey into a whole different dimension. So people who knew me 10 years ago, who see me today go, what have you done? Like, even 6 years ago, people were like, what have you been doing? There's something so different about you now.
I wanna go back and ask you one question and come at and ask another question about the 12-step healing. You know, you'd mentioned that when you were a teen that your brother-in-law and your sister had come and tried to help you at this point. Like, was there anybody that knew how you were struggling at 25 or that came and helped you to come into rehab and into the 12 steps, or this was
There was a there was a man that I had been dating, if you can call it that. There'd been a man that I was involved with um, previous, and the night I lost it, the night I had my full-on emotional breakdown, I actually called him, and he came and helped me, and he introduced me to a counselor, who introduced me to a church. That church meant I had to go on a Sunday morning without a hangover, and I wasn't quite ready to do that. But I did talk to the counselor a little bit, so it was kind of like enough opening. I had a boss at the time who was very understanding. She disclosed that she had her own alcoholism. She just needed to stop physically, and so she was there supportive. Family-wise, when you're in a home of dysfunction or alcoholism, it's really hard when one person says, I have this problem, because it means everybody has to look at their own stuff. And if people aren't ready to look at their own stuff, then no one does. Um, so family-wise, they were all like, my family is extremely ecstatic that I don't drink. They all are extremely happy that I don't drink anymore and that I got on with my life. That's as far as my recovery goes in their world. So
Mm-hmm.
at the time, they were supportive and encouraged whatever I needed to do. My little sister was definitely somebody who was super supportive with me, and, encouraged me to do whatever I needed to do to get sober. Yeah. So, but nobody of, uh, like I said, when you say you are alcoholic or you're an addict, and it affects a community, because it's not just your family, it's the people you hang out with. It makes everybody question everyone. Like, even when I meet people today and I say I'm an alcoholic, they go, well, tell me about that. Do you think I'm an alcoholic or an addict of some time? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Go sit in a meeting and they'll tell you. I don't diagnose people. It's too hard. So yeah, so it's that. Yeah, so it was a bit of on my own, and just being out there, like, moving away and building a new community. For me, it was.
And I was wondering, with kind of everything that you know now, what would you say, are some of the benefits of getting into a 12-step program or into a program like Lyft? Um, kind of what are the bigger picture things that it may help you see or help you do or be in a different way? What are the pros of these group recovery programs?
I guess with the 12 step, like I said, it actually taught me how to live. Like, it taught me how to deal with emotions that I
Mm,
didn't know how to deal with. It got me to recognize emotions. Like, I didn't know what fear was in my life. I didn't know how inconsiderate I was in the world. I didn't know how narcissistic I was in the world. So it helped me see me. It actually, uncovered who I was in my behavior. Um, Community was certainly something it gave me, a sense of belonging. I remember feeling like I was a nobody when I started doing 12-step work, but then became somebody. Like, I became
mhm,
somebody who somebody wanted to hear. I became somebody,
mm,
which is a double-edged sword for somebody like myself who's complex trauma and narcissistic, because then I want to be heard by everyone and I want to be the center of everyone's attention. Um, so it gave me, for the first time that I felt, was I could be seen, I could be heard, I could
mm,
be myself, I could be okay. I wasn't wrong, I wasn't bad. I had an illness and an addiction. I wasn't a bad person, I was a sick person. So that was some of the real benefits it gave me in early recovery. It was like, you're not a bad person, Morag. The things you've
mm,
done are not bad. You've done them because of survival skills. Like, these were your survival coping mechanisms. You did
mhm,
this to try and get your needs met. That's what it was. And, in 100% honesty, Andy, I'm extremely grateful that I found drugs and alcohol, because of how I felt about myself. I would have ended up being very suicidal at a very young age.
mhm,
You know,
mhm.
Becoming a drunk saved me taking my own life.
We talk sometimes about how it's the best Band-Aid that we have to, it's the only Band-Aid we know how to use to cover up a pain because we don't have these other tools or these ways for doing it for ourselves. Could you talk more? What I find really interesting, and I'd love you to expand on a little bit, is you mentioned like in the teenage years, kind of this complete emptiness and loneliness, and then now here a sense of belonging and finding that sense of belonging. And you touched on it a little bit, but I was wondering if you could share, like, what is the difference either inside of you, or what's the difference in how people are around you that either helps to create that loneliness and then also helps to create this community and sense of belonging.
I don't think it's anything external, Andy. I think, uh, that emptiness and loneliness growing up was that I had nothing inside of me. Like there was no no belief that I was anything good growing up. There was
Mm,
no belief that I was anything that was positive in my world. So that loneliness comes out, like that negativity comes out. So if I
mhm,
feel that about myself, then there is no way in the world you're going to like me. So my belief about myself, which we know now is shame, my core belief about myself was nobody in this world would ever want to be near me, with me, like me, or anything. So the loneliness was actually inside of me, not outside. I had friends, I had people I could be with, like, school friends, all that sort of stuff. I had people around. I'm a friendly person. People always are attracted to my energy. Leaving school, going into my addiction, I always had people we hung out with and I did stuff with. But the loneliness was there. And like we talk about it in different times, I could be lonely in a crowded room and I could be lonely in a crowded room of people who love me because I didn't have that in me. So the
mm,
shift is learning how to do that for me. And, I was a big, 18, 19, Louise Hayes hit the bookshelves and, it was a lot of do the self-love, love and approve of yourself. And, positive affirmations are fantastic. But for me, if I'm not showing myself that, they mean nothing. I'm just writing out, the
mm,
smoking book that I had to
mhm,
write out 5 times in high school because I got caught smoking all the time. It was just writing out lines. I remember and I remember Carol saying this to me once. She saw me writing out my lines and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm writing out my affirmations. I love and approve of myself." And she said, "Well, why don't you start showing yourself that?" Like I was drinking copious amounts of coffee. I was smoking cigarettes. I was eating sugar. All this stuff was going on right there in front of me as I'm writing, I love and approve of myself. So I had to learn to change the action to change the feeling.
mm,
So I started pretending that I loved myself. So if I did
mm,
love myself, what would it look like? I
mhm,
wouldn't smoke 15 cigarettes before 8 o'clock in the morning. I would, maybe only smoke five. Uh, you know, so I started changing how I saw myself and started changing the beliefs I had about myself and reprogramming those tapes and getting to that core of that shame. And I've said it before, like that level of shame just goes deeper, deeper, deeper. And some of the really deep wounds, as the sexual abuse and other ones that I had as a child, those deep wounds take layers. There's not just, oh, I see I'm not good enough, that's going to fix that. There was like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, that's connected to this. Like it's like an octopus and it has tentacles. Each shame has a different tentacle attached to it. So learning how to start to provide my needs for myself. So recognizing my needs. And I started doing this work a little bit before I came across Tim Fletcher. In emotional sobriety work that I was doing, and I was looking at codependency, and it talked about providing your own needs for yourself. So I was doing it a little bit, but when I came across Tim and he had the structure of the 12 needs,
mhm,
that just bombed me. That was like, yes, this is what I've been looking for.
mm,
And as you know, I've run with that since I've been doing the program and teaching and being one of
mhm.
Tim's staff members. And um, finding those needs within me, seeing how do you validate yourself, Morag? How do you actually go, you know, how do you talk to yourself? What is the language that you have in your head that you say? So I started to become curious instead of critical at myself all the time. So instead of going, you're an idiot, no one's ever going to love you, you're fat, you're ugly, all those negative voices that I would have, start going, oh, it's really interesting. Why are you thinking that about yourself today, sweetheart? You're feeling a bit something.
How you mentioned like action even without feeling. And so I know kind of with like addictions, compulsions, even anxiety, sometimes it's difficult to take that loving action. especially when we have this like strong urge, this strong impulse, like moving another way. You mentioned cigarettes, but I'm sure with like alcohol or even like ice cream or even sex, like, is there a way that you could explain combating a really strong or really real urge to take that healthy action when you've been in this pattern of taking the unhealthy action?
I think that's where the 12 steps came in place for me,
Mm,
because, total abstinence. There was no
mhm,
having a little bit here, a little bit there. Then the education of the 12 steps, like the education of what alcoholism is and what addiction is. So understanding that my body is different to the person who can have one glass of wine. I sit and watch somebody have a glass of wine and it drives me crazy because it's like, just drink it, man. What are you doing?
mhm,
Just drink it. And they'll sit on it for 2 hours sipping it and then leave the rest. Like, it doesn't make
mm,
sense to me. So,
mhm,
um, so the education that they gave me what alcoholism actually was, and that it's an illness inside of us, and my body changes, and when I drink alcohol, I want more alcohol. It's the same for
mhm,
me with sugar. It's the same, the dopamine hit that I would get from taking certain drugs. It would give me a high before I even took the drugs. So seeing that, so the discipline of the 12 steps helped me greatly
mm,
with that. Like, nope,
mhm,
not allowed it, can't have it. But I couldn't just do the discipline. I had to do the healing, which was the emotional, the emotional healing, then the emotional kind of, well, this is the thing that I need to put in place. So if I'm not going to drink, what am I going to do? And this is where I started developing a relationship with a higher power, with a God, whatever you want to call it, and relied on it to take care of my problems. And
mhm,
I remember being 6 or 7 months sober, been told all this stuff in meetings, like, you got to trust God, you got to rely on God, you got to do this. And I remember, it's probably the first time I did the throw up, well, if you're there, I'm giving you this, arrogantly, of course, you give me this back. I had some bills to pay. I was about to hand in a uniform for a place that I worked. I asked if she had any more work. She said no. Um, on the way there, I walked there, and on the way there, I just said, "Oh, well, if you're there, you know this problem, you know what I need, take care of it," you know?
mhm,
And that was kind of my first throw up prayer. And by the 15-minute walk, by the time I got to the shop, the woman said, "Morag, can you work for the next 6 weeks? Somebody's had an accident and I need you for 6 weeks." And like 20 minutes earlier, she didn't have any work for me.
mm,
So it was like, mm, you do work and fast.
mhm,
So it was like the development of that belief, development of that
mhm,
faith. Somebody told me to do it. I believed it worked for them. That gave me enough trust. That gave me enough faith that it may work for me. I did it. I had an experience. It worked for me. And that gave me the trust that then I could do this. I could rely on something to take away or give me things that I needed. I needed, not what I wanted. Totally two different things. So take away the things that, were going to cause me pain. And I was really, really lucky, Andy. I've been one of the blessed people who, when I stopped drinking, I think in 30 years I've been, hit by the emotional effort button 3 times in my sobriety. So I've been really lucky in that case. It was taken away from me. My other addictions weren't so easy. So
mhm,
my sugar addiction wasn't so easy. My sex addiction wasn't so easy. You interact with those things more than just put down. I had to learn how to have those things in my life that were in a healthy way, not well, you just don't drink. So I had to learn how to eat healthy. I had to learn how to have food in my life that was non-addictive. I had to learn how to have intimate relationships without it being based on sex. And, I was
mm,
in a long-term relationship for 16 years, and my partner in that relationship really taught me that. They loved
mm,
me unconditionally. And they
mm,
taught me that. They taught me that they loved me with or without being sexual.
mm.
So I'm always grateful to them.
Yeah. How did that affect you? Kind of like feeling that or being able to receive that or understand that.
At first, it was really confusing for me because I felt it was
Mm,
rejection. What do you mean you don't want to be with me sexually? I don't
mm,
understand. because that was my being. That's where I got my
Mm-hmm.
attention. That's where I got my love. That's where I got it. What do you mean you don't want to be with me sexually? Yeah. So, at first, but then I learnt how much they loved me and what intimacy actually looks like, not what sexual relationship looks like.
I think that like really highlights the danger of complex trauma because, often, something really healthy, unconditional love is interpreted initially as rejection. And so, how maybe like upside down some of our beliefs are or feelings are to what's actually healthy may feel painful and difficult when we're first exposed to it.
Absolutely. We don't know. Um, we long, for myself, I longed for everything that I saw was the right
Right.
relationships to have. I longed for them. I yearned for them. Um, But when they were in front of me, I didn't know how to do it. I had no
Mm.
idea. I didn't know how
Mm-hmm.
to have a healthy relationship. I didn't know how to have a healthy friendship. I knew how to be dependent on people, and I knew how to uh, get what I wanted from people. I knew how to manipulate people, and I was extremely narcissistic. Extremely. It was always about me. Didn't really care what you felt, and would walk
Mm-hmm.
away from people and cut people out of my life without a second thought if I wasn't getting what I wanted from them. I'm glad I found the program and, got healed because that's not a nice person. That's not a very
Yeah,
kind,
yeah,
loving person.
yeah. And it takes me back to kind of how we talked about your mother, but that ability to look back at yourself as well and to take that kind of non-judgmental, non-shameful accountability. Like I did this. Like just how real and powerful and healing acknowledging the truth of who I was in the past and being able to state that like I can see a lot of healing in that, just in that itself. I want to ask you quick. I'm looking at the time, and I'm thinking of all the things that I all the things that I want from you, uh, that I want to hear from you. And so I was wondering, you talked a lot about the kind of the 12-step program, and then the discipline, the structure, the connection with the higher power, and then also with the Lyft program, this deeper education on shame and more healing with that. Um, could you maybe talk? You briefly mentioned boundaries, uh, and there's been a little bit of like talk about relationship with the inner child in a conversation. I was wondering if you could kind of talk about, yeah, more about like the boundaries, learning boundaries, and also kind of developing a relationship with an inner child.
I did a workshop, a professional workshop a long time ago around boundaries, and this beautiful little Scottish lady, asked the question as we're introducing to everyone, what is a boundary to you? And I remember saying to her, I don't have boundaries, I have portable fences. They get moved to suit the people around me so I don't get hurt. And that's what my life was like. I had no boundaries in my life. If they were aggressive. They were brick walls, they weren't boundaries, and they were cut. Like, my boundary was you get out of my life. That was kind of my boundary, which is hard for someone who's codependent because I don't want you to get out of my life, but, I'd push you out and I would create the scenario of you leaving me so I wouldn't have to deal with stuff. Um, so when she asked me the question, I said, no, I have portable fences. And my journey started with her around boundaries, starting to know what it looked like in a professional sense, understanding the crossing of boundaries and getting the language around boundaries. Then coming into, again, like I was already in 12-step programs and learning a little bit about boundary stuff in there. Things like my personal space, like I just thought anybody could do whatever they want. They could hug me. There was no concept that I could say no. So
Hmm.
learning how to say no to the simple thing of, in lots of communities, people hug. I'm a huge hugger. I'm a very touchy person. If you and I were sitting having a coffee, I'd be giving you a big hug at the end and, I'd be chatting away and my hand would be on your shoulder. It'd be all that stuff. I'm an extremely touchy person. But there were times where people would come and hug me and I didn't want them to. And I didn't know how to say no. So I had to learn to stick my hand out and say, how are you? and accept. And I remember the first person I did that with, and I did that in the rooms of 12 step. And the person I'd had let hug me in previous. And then when he came to hug me again, I put my hand out and his response was, oh, that's rejection. And my guilt and shame, my guilt of, oh, I've hurt him now, came up and I almost dropped it and went and
Mm.
hugged him. And I went, no, 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 this is not about you. This is about me. So I started learning a little bit about, what boundaries are for and what they're at. But I was still in the concept what a lot of people have, that boundaries are about me pushing you away, and I talk about this in the program and people I work with. A boundary is not about you. A boundary, and I really don't like the word boundary. I use the word guidelines because of
Mm.
this, because people
Mhm.
have bashed the word. Because people believe, and I believed, that boundaries were about me setting something to you. I'm trying to control you to get you to behave in a particular way. So I'm setting this boundary against you. What a boundary is me looking after myself and taking care of my own needs. So for me today, when I have to set a guideline for my life, whether it's an internal one or an external one, when I have to set that guideline for myself, I need to know what need I'm trying to get met to hold it. So if it's that personal space stuff, then it's safety for me. It's about me feeling safe and comfortable and connected. So if I know that's what the need is, then when that person says, oh, that's rejection, I don't take that personally, because it's not rejection, because I'm taking care of myself, and not in
Mhm.
a arrogant, ugly way. I
Mhm.
say to people all the time, when we start learning to set boundaries, we go from being a doormat to being a bulldozer. Eventually we do come in the middle and it becomes quite
Mhm.
healthy the
Mhm.
way we set them. But that's just the process. That was my process. I'd be very strong and arrogant and forceful about setting them. And now it's about, what do I need? I need to feel safe. You don't make me feel safe, so you don't get in my personal space. So
Mhm.
it's connecting that to my needs in the process.
Yeah. I like you bringing up kind of the bulldozer because like so much of the healing journey is, we're like a toddler and we're stumbling around. And so you go from one side and then sometimes you have to go too far. And then if you're keeping on that journey and paying attention, then slowly you'll find like this place that can align with yourself and aligns in a more healthy way. But we've got to be willing to sometimes be a bulldozer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And something a wise woman said to me once many years ago, she said, Morag, you can't set boundaries and then take care of the other person's feelings.
Mm. Mhm.
Okay. So if when I set that boundary, especially like with people close to me, say with my sister, or in relationships, when I set the boundaries and they're not going to be happy about it, I can't get involved in that emotions. I can't take care of their feelings or their reactions or their behaviors that are connected to it. I just need to stay
Mhm.
with me. And that is, for me, I understand that is the main cause of people letting their boundaries drop. It's because the thing with learning about boundaries is, the one thing we fear is being rejected by asking for what we need. What happens more than often than not, when we start setting boundaries and people aren't used to it, is they reject us. So our fear comes true, but we have to I had to process through that fear. I had to get to the place where it was like, I need to do this for me. And and I don't even go, I'm sorry that does make you happy, but I need to do this for me. This is for my
Mhm.
mental health. This is for my well-being. This is for my healthiness. This is for my heart to be free. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm still in the unhealthiness of shame and rejection and replacement and all those
Uh,
lovely words.
yeah. There's that sense too of kind of really building up that emotional independence, maybe healing from false guilt or that over responsibility, even our sympathetic nervous. Like there's so many
Yeah.
small components I think that can really help to build the boundary setting. So you went through the lift, um, have been a teacher, facilitator in the program and also in Thailand. Would you want to talk a little bit about this period of your life as facilitator, coach, and this recent time that you've been in Thailand?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I came across Tim's Lyft program. I came across it end of a relationship, my long-term relationship, and my ex-partner actually sent me the video on codependency and complex trauma and said, no, you're doing your own thing, but I think you'll like this guy. I didn't like Tim the first time I heard him. I thought, how dare he talk to me this way? It's so personal, but what he was saying was true. And then I listened to him a second time, and then I listened to the whole 8-part series in like 2 days. I just couldn't stop hearing it. And I was like, no matter what, I have to do work with this man. So I did the research, and, thank God for COVID, because the React program became a Lyft program, which was online. Me in Australia, I would never have got to do or even heard about the React program if we didn't have COVID and didn't go online. So, it was, for me, it was great that happened. And anyway, so I went through the Lyft program the first time by myself because there wasn't a suitable time in Australia to do it. And I knew halfway through it, I needed to finish this work, and I wanted to be teaching this. I knew that this was the next stage of my life. I knew that this was the next part. At the time, I was an early educator, running my own business, doing childcare and out of my own home. And I thought that was going to be my retirement job. This is what I'm going to do till I end, but nope, God had other plans. Anyway, part of Tim's organisation stuff is, as you know, we have to do the program with a group to become a facilitator. So I bugged poor Brianna, I think every week, have you created a group yet? Have you created a group yet? And I think when she finally got the facilitators to do it, she just emailed me and said, just start dates here. She didn't even ask me. She said, this is your start date. And then I did the program with a group for 6 months. Again, loved it. What I got out of it doing it singly was huge. Like, there was so much healing in that process at that time. But what I got out of doing it as a group was even more, like, because of the interaction and the connection in the community I got with, being with people. And it was interesting when Tim was in Australia not long ago, one of the women said, I've been watching Tim for ages. And I said, I'm going to talk to you at the end of the weekend. I want to know the difference between watching him on YouTube and seeing him live. And I did talk to her at the end of the weekend, and she said, like, it's so different. Like, you feel it, you're present with it. You're really into it with him when he's here, and you could feel his energy, which is, one of the reasons I do like running this face to face. So did the program myself twice, became a facilitator by doing their the Compass course, started facilitating straight away. At the time, I knew this is what I wanted to do. So I was in Brisbane at the time, and I started going, well, okay, how can I start doing React in Australia? How can I start doing this? Couple of weeks later, I got offered a job in a rehab in Thailand. Never wanted to go to Thailand. Wasn't on my travel list. Nothing about it. I went, why not? Went to Thailand. Went to work in this rehab. Through the circumstances, that particular job didn't work out, and at the same time, the Tim Fletcher organisation offered me more work. So I went from doing 2 classes a week to doing 6. And then that just built up. I bought the licensing for the React program, and I started running it in Thailand face to face, mostly with expats. There were a couple of Thai people who did it, but mostly with expats. I did 2 rounds of the en route program while I was living in Thailand. So the en route program is the shorter version of it's the longer version of phase 1, but shorter version of the entire program. So it was something they didn't need to commit to for as long as, and only being one person delivering phase 2 is too much. So I need 2 facilitators to do that. So I did that twice face to face in Thailand, and I absolutely loved it. I love delivering this work, talking to people, sharing my own experiences around it, watching people come alive, watching from, I love doing it online with the guys that I start with phase 1 through to the end of phase 2, but watching people in real life, as it's unfolding for them right there in front of me, watching them grow and change. And the women and the men who did that, I ended up working in a secondary rehab there, and it was part of the team. I delivered the program in there, and it was such an amazing place. Unfortunately shut down. The owner went back to America, but there was myself who did delivered the program, the educational part of the program, then did some one-on-one coaching. There was another facilitator who did TRE, and she was a therapist. And then there was another facilitator who was an energy healer, and she did all body work. And so the people who did all three got amazing results and are still clean
Yeah.
and sober today. They're still going really strong. People who only did one or two things, they're still around,
Mm.
but they didn't
Mm-hmm.
have the impact that doing all three. So it made me see that the combination of healing is not just the education is what we do with the program, but it's the somatic stuff, and it's the coaching and the counseling that comes with it as well. And of course, for me, energy work as well. So I was doing that for 2.5 years in Thailand. And then I started to get the pull to come back to Australia. Now, I didn't know why I was coming back to Australia. And Tim and I had already started talking about him coming to Australia. Over in Thailand, he was coming somewhere near me. I was getting him
Mm-hmm.
somewhere near me. And we ended up getting him into Australia. He did a weekend in Brisbane and a weekend in Sydney. I got the pleasure of being with Tim Fletcher and Kim Fletcher for like 10 days and just loved it, like being in their company. And in that process, uh, we started talking about doing React here in Australia. And he just asked me if I was up for it. And 24 hours later, I went, yep, let's start it, Tim. And he announced it at the first workshop that I'd be, the face of React in Australia, Brisbane. So the journey in Thailand was just phenomenal. It personally, I did so much growth there because I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
anybody. I didn't know anything. I was doing this work, even though I'd finished the program myself. There is no finishing of doing this work. It
Mm-hmm.
is ongoing, ongoing, ongoing. And what I reflect on today with my journey there, it was probably the first time in my life that I actually got to be Morag and got to be the
Mm.
person I was meant to be before any of the trauma happened in my life, because 90% of it felt like it was healed. So I got to really know who I was. I got to know me. And I'm pretty incredible. I'm pretty amazing. So I
I
love
I
my
actually
life.
I agree with that. You know, I've had the pleasure. I think you and I are very different people, but I really love kind of your light and your joy and your energy and the spark that you bring.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. And then I'm bringing it to Australia.
Yeah, yeah. So for people who don't know, React stands for Recovery from Addiction and Complex Trauma. And so it's the in-person program of the Lyft program. And so kind of what's your hope for people who will come into the program and maybe even for yourself as you step into this new role?
My hope for people is they get to be as free as I feel. That's
Mm,
my hope for people, that they get to feel trauma and addictions, everything that stems from our trauma is such a heavy life. We carry this darkness around, pretending to be light. We carry this darkness in us and pretending to be light. Um, So my hope for people is that if they can heal one aspect, if they can start to understand what the 12 needs, or whatever needs you call it. Like people get hung up on, is it Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Tim Fletcher's 12 needs? Like, doesn't matter what it is. If people, my hope for people in the whole universe is if people could start to understand the importance and the essence of, if we give this stuff to ourselves in a loving, nurturing, kind way, not in an arrogant, egotistical way, which is what most of us have tried to do. If they can do that, every relationship in their life, every single one, is going to be different. And if you can imagine that happening in a ripple effect in the world, there will no longer be any of the crises or the dependencies or the pain that we all have been suffering our whole lives. All of
mm-hmm,
us that are in this planet today, all the suffering that is there. That would be my hope for everyone, to even just
mm-hmm,
be able to provide one need for themselves solidly.
yeah.
My hope for myself is I keep doing that for me.
Mm-hmm,
Some days it's a swing. Some days I fall back into wanting somebody else to tell me I look good, wanting somebody else to tell me I'm loved.
mm-hmm,
I have many people in my life, um, one of the gifts that I've got from doing this work, Andy, is I went from a human being who sought validation from every single being, cats, dogs, everything needed to validate me, to being a person who actually gives that to herself now. I give that
Mm,
to me now. And because I give that to me, the universe confirms it for me. So although it is still nice to hear that I look pretty, or it's still nice to hear that I'm doing a good job, the human need of being validated, it is no longer part of my existence, that I need it from you for me to
yeah.
function today, which is the opposite. So what the universe gives me today is now confirmation of what I know to be true in myself. So well, that's the wish I have for everybody in the world.
Sounds very powerful and liberating. Can I ask quick? So I know when we first talked, I know you love the 12 needs and you've brought them up a few times today. And originally I was hoping to ask you a lot about the 12 needs. And I think, but I realized like that your story was so important to really kind of go into the fullness of your story. And so I know we've chatted about kind of meeting again and doing a fuller session on the 12 needs, but could you give like a high level overview of the 12 needs and maybe some of the reasons why they're so important?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 12 need class is in module 1 of the Lyft program, and it's day 3. When I did that, when I did so when, as for people who may not know what the Lyft program is, you watched him present the topic, you have material that you answer certain questions, and then you come back into the group and you do answer the questions with the group. The first time I did that, I wasn't doing the group stuff, and I did the writing. And the question Tim asks is, well, my interpretation, I actually don't know if he does ask this or not, but my interpretation was to sit down and write which one of these needs got provided for you when you were a child. And when
Hmm.
I went through it and what I understand the words to mean, I went, food, water, and shelter. That's what they gave me. They weren't capable of giving me the rest. So it was a massive aha moment. I kind of went, well, that explains why I'm so messed up. I didn't get any of my needs met. Like it explained it. It. I often say to people, doing the Lift program is like a jigsaw. We shake upside down, we throw it all over the floor, and each class, each module, each aha is turning a picture over and hope a piece over. And hopefully by the end of the course, you've got a picture, even if it doesn't make sense. You've got a picture of why. That class, that exercise,
Mm-hmm.
gave me the picture of why. And then it made sense. So then the next question was, well, how do I provide these for myself? And I went
Hmm.
through, well, if I'm really on my game, I do eat really well and eat healthy. I drink lots of water. I went through the process of each need. How do I, uh, how do I, um, how do I give myself pleasure? And I'm like, I don't know. What does it mean? And then it was almost like every time I explored one, something would open up. I caught, when it came to pleasure, I saw I had a fear attached to pleasure, that
Mm,
everything I ever did as a child ended in chaos and drama. Like if we went camping, something bad would happen. So there was no joy attached to doing something pleasurable. So pleasure actually became my first need that I've really focused on. Um, Also, the time of my life, I just ended a long-term relationship. I was rediscovering who I was. What do I like to do? So it kind of went hand in hand. I started exploring what pleasure looked like for me. What were the things that made my heart sing? What were the things that brought me joy? What were the things that I always said, oh, I want to do that, but got too scared because fear would cripple me. So I looked into that. And then I looked into what sex and intimacy looked like. What does it look like being single, trying to fulfill your sexual needs and your intimacy? So I learned about my friendships and how much my friends loved me. And I started accepting their
mm,
love before I could move on to being able to be loved by somebody else in an intimate sexual relationship. I had to learn about my body and learn about because my love language is physical touch. One of my love languages is physical touch. So how do I find that being single in a healthy way? Tinder's great to find it in an unhealthy way. But,
Hmm.
how do you find this stuff in a healthy way? So I had to learn all that. And I went through each and every need exactly that way. And then I started connecting it with more of the program. So then when we did the love languages, it's, well, how do I provide these needs for myself with my love languages? How do I provide these needs through my shame? And what I learned through doing this work over and over again is that my unmet needs is my base trauma, ground zero. From my needs not getting met, it created shame. That shame then creates a belief about myself that creates codependency and creates fear in my life. And when I'm in fear, I usually react in anger because I'm terrified you're going to hurt me and leave me, so I'll rather be angry at you. So when I work on this, that's the down up, the bottom, the top down is I have to
Hmm.
heal the anger. I have to heal the fear. I have to look at the codependency. I have to heal the shame. And I do all that by providing these needs for myself. But I had no idea what they look like. I had
Hmm.
no idea how to respect me. So I started finding the mirrors of the people in my life who did look like they respected themselves. I asked them what they did. I asked them how they respected themselves. I asked them what would it look like if I respected me. And they told me. And and back to the acting as, I started to act like I respected myself. And the acting and the changing of that energy changed how I felt about myself, and it reduced the shame. And the whole shame process is like, see the shame, see the lie, see who said it, see how
Hmm.
I've tried to control and manage it. What's my need? Okay, I need to provide this need for myself. What does that look like? We all joke in the Tim Fletcher, Morag and her 12 needs. I have completely stolen from Tim.
No, no. I mean, I love kind of getting just this like quick perspective from you, and I really look on having a selfishly, I really look on having a fuller and a deeper conversation with you to be able to ask you more questions and to learn more deeply with it. And so, kind of having been in this world where you're coaching and you're facilitating, you've been working on meeting your 12 needs, you have this connection to a higher power, you're learning how to love and validate yourself from inside. As you sit here today, what's it feel like to be in your body and at home with yourself in a way that you weren't before?
You just said the word, Andy. I feel I'm at home. Like I
Mm,
feel a sense of belonging to who I am today. I do not have that emptiness of that loneliness in my soul anymore. I feel, the 12th need is happy, content, and whole. And out of those three words, whole is what I feel. I feel I can stand in my own. Um, I feel authentic, and I've never, ever been able to be authentic in all my stuff, authentic when I'm feeling chubby, authentic when I'm feeling, scraggy.
mm,
Some mornings I wake up and like, oh my God, you look fine today, girl. And other mornings I go, oh, you should have got more sleep last night, sweetheart. So authentic. I feel like the human being that was born just over 55 years ago as that precious little baby who couldn't wait to explore what this world had on offer. And that's how I
mm,
feel. I'm excited every day. I have moments and I have down days and I have stuff that comes up. My shame still presents itself, but it presents for minutes, seconds, minutes, and hours now instead of months, years, and decades. I can ask for what I need. Um, when I am in friendships or in relationships, I can ask for things that are important for me, which I never would have done before. Um, this is what I need in this relationship. Are you able to do so? No, then okay, then this isn't the relationship for me. Would never have been able to do that in the past. Um, that fear of being rejected or being replaced consumed me. And today, it still hurts. Can't say it doesn't. I'm still very human. I'm more human than not. It still hurts, but I know today the truth is they're actually not rejecting me. They're saying yes to themselves like I'm saying yes to me. And that was a huge shift. Um,
yeah.
Authentic, whole, complete, um, excited. Life just is, can't wait. Like people who know me, it's like, can't wait to see what's happening next in my life. And that's kind of the what happens is like, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's just see. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I love, I resonate, as you say, even with everything that you've just said, going back to that first word again, that feeling like you're home. I can really see that as you're sharing this right now. Um, well, I love, Morag, that you are looking to create a new home to help other people in Australia. And I recognize that I say Brisbane incorrectly. I think I pronounce it better there instead of Brisbane. Don't have the correct accent. Um, so if somebody's listening from Australia or knows someone who might benefit from the React program, is there a way for them at this point to learn more or to get involved?
Yep, they can contact Tim Fletcher organization. You guys will scoot them over to me, or they can contact me directly through my website and my email, which, do you want me to give you that on here?
Yeah. If you could share
Yeah.
both of those.
Yeah. So it's just my web. So the website's www.growfromwithin.com.au. And the email is info@growfromwithin.com.au. So they can contact me directly on there. Morag Clark's pretty easy to find. There's a few of us in the world, but yes, Grow From Within is my business that React will be running under while I'm here in Australia. So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, I wish you the best as you continue to plan for this. And Morag, I want to thank you for your honesty and your courage and your enthusiasm and your willingness to walk us through your pain, but also talking about like survival and the insights that you've shared, and really like reclaiming your voice, like your center and your voice, and as you said here at the end, your home. Uh, I'm really looking forward to having another discussion with you about the 12 needs. And I honestly, I love how you carry this joy with you wherever you go. It's just, it's wonderful to be in your presence.
Thank you, Andy. And you too. We've journeyed a little while together, so it's been lovely to get to know you. So
Mm.
thank you so much for this opportunity. Like, yeah, hopefully this will land in somebody's lap and they'll go, if she can do it, I can do it. You know.
No, I love that as an ending message. And so I just want to share to those listening, if parts of Morag's story resonated with you, please know that you're not alone. And there's help, there's healing, and there are people who care. Until next time, take care of yourselves and find something that makes your heart sing. Thank you for joining us on the Time with Tim podcast. If you'd like to share your own experiences or have questions, feel free to email us at podcasts@timfletcher.ca. Want to learn more about complex trauma? Subscribe to Tim Fletcher's YouTube channel for past lectures and his Friday night Tim Talks. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok. Looking for more support? We offer programs and courses to help with healing complex trauma and recovering from addictions. Visit timfletcher.ca to learn more or send us an inquiry. We're here to support you. Until we meet again, take care and thank you for letting us be a part of your healing journey.